A second, once I can get YouTube going, we can get this. I want to just knock this out of the way. Want to knock it out of the way, knock it out, finish it up, whatever the correct term is. All right, let's go to the YouTube. No, I don't see. Hang on. Theology Central. Okay, hang on. All right, there we are. Whatever the correct term is. Test 1, 2, 3. Test. All right, let's go to the. I think that's okay. Let me turn off the live chat. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Now let me go over here to Sermon Audio. Waiting for the site to update. There it are. There it is. There we are. There. I can't even speak correctly this morning. All right, ladies and Test gentlemen. 1, 2, 3. Now let me go over here to. There we are. There I am. There are I. There I am. Are I? I can't even speak correctly. Yeah, I should be broadcasting this morning. I can't even make a coherent thought right now. Yeah, my head's not great. All right. Tennessee has tuned in. Thank you so very much. Now I need Tennessee, I need North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, because those are the people who always tune in for the live broadcast. They don't download or listen to the on-demand as much, those areas. Oregon is number one for the last couple of days. Oregon has been far above everyone else. I don't know, someone in Oregon has started listening to the podcast. I mean, they've been listening, but the numbers have increased dramatically there. So thank you very much for those in Oregon. But our go-to geographical regions who listen to this podcast live is Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia. Don't know why it's that area that tunes in live. I can't, when I go live, nobody else from any other area of the country cares. No, there's some other states as well, but that's just always the ones I look to. Oh, there's Tennessee, there's North Carolina, there's South Carolina, there's Georgia. Okay, now I can go live. So today is just Tennessee, but that's okay. All right, I do appreciate Tennessee tuning in. All right, so let's do this. I want to just get this over with because, man, yeah, you'll hear. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central podcast, making theology central.
Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, November the 10th, 2025. It is currently 9:33 a.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from the Theology Central studio, located right here in Abilene, Texas. Now, whenever I'm in this studio, whenever I sit down in front of this microphone, I prefer to turn on this microphone and talk about things, well, related to theology, correct? I like to do Bible studies and hermeneutical discussions, theological discussions, sometimes talking about current events from a theological perspective, but everything is about theology. It's to turn on this microphone and talk about that. The one thing I don't ever want to do is to turn on this microphone and simply talk about the finances of this podcast. In fact, I think if you go back and review well over 4,000 episodes, I don't talk about money that often, all right? Only when I feel like I have to. And I do know, probably for the last 12 months, it's come up more frequently than it typically has because there has been a lot of things happening behind the scenes, a lot of changes and difficulty and stress and concern and what's the future of the podcast. There has been a lot of that. So instead of, hey, today we're going to be studying, Isaiah 46. But before we do that, let's take a few minutes to talk about the finances of the podcast. That just seems, I don't like that. So I thought I would just make this a standalone episode, get this out of the way, say things that need to be said, because especially for some of you who support the podcast financially, you definitely need to know what's going on. And I always want to be as transparent as I possibly can. So even though I don't like to talk about it, we have to talk about it because And I think this is a foundational point. We have to just start with this. I don't like it, you don't like it, probably no one likes it, but it costs money to broadcast, to do what I'm doing right now, to go live right now on the Sermon Audio platform, sermonaudio.com, the Sermon Audio app, and the Church One app. That's $60 a month. Every month, that's $60. Now, that may not seem like a lot to you, but that's $60 every single month. In fact, I'll be charged $60 in just a few weeks for broadcasting on the Sermon Audio platform. Very grateful for Sermon Audio, but it costs money, all right? Our podcast hosting site costs money. Our pod page costs money. Domain names, to have the domain for theologycentral.net, to have the domains for our solo site via Sermon Audio. All of that costs money. Not a lot, but it still costs money. This microphone I'm talking into costs money. The computer costs money. In fact, a listener bought the computer that I'm broadcasting from. A listener did that. It costs money. To do any updates, to do any improvements costs money. Everything costs money. To promote the podcast costs everything. Money. And it can be irritating. So the question comes, well, how do you fund a podcast? How do you make money? How do you bring in the money to just cover the cost of broadcasting? Well, podcasters have lots of different ways of trying to accomplish that, right? Many try to create a situation where maybe they put certain content behind a paywall, Patreon or wherever, and you get access to certain episodes or special episodes, or you get the full episode if you support monthly. So some will do that. So they'll try to put things behind a paywall. I am not going to put any of my content behind a paywall. I'm not even going to try that. That's just no. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to put, hey, I'm here to teach theology and teach the Word of God, but if you want to hear the full broadcast, I've seen some of them, they'll give different names for the level of support. Become a reformer, and then you can hear all of my content. No, that's just, I'm not doing that. I'm not putting it behind a paywall. If I have to put it behind a paywall, I'm just going to delete the podcast and move on. So that's not an option. Another option, very popular in the podcasting world, is, include ads in your podcast. Ads play, you can do it a couple of different ways. Ads play at the beginning and the end, or you can add what's called a mid-roll, and in the middle of the podcast, you do a break and play a commercial, right? But there's positives of that, right? Because every time someone listens and they listen to those ads, well, you get a little bit of money. You get a little percentage, like a percentage of a penny, okay? But if you get enough people listening, that can add up to at least cover the cost. I mean, we have tried ads before, and we were able to cover the cost of our podcast hosting site, Spreaker. We were making that payment with the ads covered. Completely covered. In fact, we were making enough to even help a little bit, not completely, but help a little bit with our Sermon Audio cost, right? But here's the negative, right? Here's the negative about doing ads. As soon as you have ads, someone will start complaining. And usually the people who start complaining are not the people who you hear from all the time, not from the people who support your podcast, who encourage you, send maybe a financial gift, or just do anything to support the podcast. No, you don't hear from them. You hear from people you've never heard from before, who will immediately start complaining about the content of the ads. It's inappropriate. I don't like it. Why do you have ads before a theology podcast? What are you doing? This is ungodly. This is fleshly. Why are you doing this? All you care about is money. You're greedy. In fact, I have received lots of those when we did ads, right? And I talked about some of the complaints, and we had a listener who said, no. I will give you this much money. You can delete the ads. And they gave me that much money. And guess what? I deleted the ads within an hour of that. So we don't do ads. But if you do ads, people are going to complain. And what's crazy, you can go to, say, the Pandora online community or the Spotify online community. There's lots of people who sign up for those communities to express their opinions about Pandora or Spotify. They're using a free account, right? They're using the Pandora free with ads or Spotify free with ads. And guess what those people will do? They're using the free service and they will complain night and day about the advertisements. Oh, that advertisement is wrong. I can't believe this. I'm not gonna use Pandora anymore. If you play that ad one more time, I'm like, that ad is literally paying so that you can listen for free. So the ads is just a nightmare. It is just a nightmare. And in some ways, I don't like it either. I don't like to have an ad play and then the next thing you hear is, welcome to the Theology Central podcast, where we make theology central. And then you hear me say, open your Bibles to Isaiah 44. Oh man, I don't like that either. So ads is possible, but it just leads to never ending headaches. So if you either you put it behind a paywall or you do ads, and the third way of it is, well, the listeners support you. The listeners support you. Now, for this podcast, and I've been broadcasting over 30 years in some capacity, for the most part, I've not needed listeners to really support the podcast. It's always nice when a listener does. It's always been, there's nothing more encouraging than you spend hour after hour after hour in front of a microphone, work, and all of a sudden you get an email saying someone just gave $50, someone just gave $100, or you go to the mailbox and there's a check saying, hey, use this for whatever you want. And we have a listener in Ohio and she does that. She'll send a check and say you can use it for whatever you want. You know how encouraging that is? That's like, wow, someone listens to the podcast. They appreciate what I'm doing. And that's like their way of saying thank you for all your hard work. And her checks have come in sometimes. She's bought tires for the car. She's helped repair the AC unit for the house. Her checks show up sometimes. It's almost like she's psychic. And I'm not saying she is, but I'm saying it's just amazing how her checks show up at a perfect time. And I'm always so grateful for that. So grateful for that. But so, you have, typically you can have listeners support us, but for this podcast, I've not needed that. I've not been in a position to need that. And the reason why is this podcast has been supported for 20 years by Victory Baptist Church located in the middle of nowhere, Texas. That's been the way it's worked. The people who have given to the podcast, that money has always almost immediately turned into buying books for people. We've bought dictionaries for people, systematic theologies for people. We've done so much turning it around, trying to make digital curriculum available to people, buying people devotionals, Bible handbooks, you name it. So the listeners who gave, that money just immediately went right back into giving to people who listen to the podcast or offering different things to people. So, but we didn't necessarily need their money to keep the podcast going. Their money just went to do extra with the podcast, maybe to buy an ad somewhere. Going way back in the day, maybe we could use that money to offer up a featured sermon on Sermon Audio so that we could draw a bigger audience. So the listeners back then just helped support all of those additional things we were doing. And we rarely even asked for money at all. I don't know if we've ever even asked for money back then. So the church supported it and everything was great. Everything was wonderful. But you jump to about 2024, well, things started changing because the writing was on the wall that Victory Baptist Church, located in the middle of nowhere, Texas, was about to basically disappear. And it's been a long journey, but here we are, November 2025. And well, the church can no longer, it's over. The church no longer can support this podcast. They cannot, they just cannot. In fact, it's kind of been over. It's kind of been over. So that's done. And for all practical purposes, the church is basically over. In fact, I will be moving this podcast, the account for this podcast will be moved over to my personal account, probably the end of December. At the end of December or the beginning of January, this podcast will be moved over completely to my account, meaning any expense for this podcast will come from my bank account, my personal money. It will not be, it's no longer even supported by the church for any meaningful purpose. The church they just can't do it, all right? So if you don't know, we are waiting for the sale of the building, okay? And this has been going on. We've been talking about it since 2024. It's been over a year since we've been trying to sell the building. I always make the joke that the church is located in the middle of nowhere, Texas, and that's why it was very hard to sustain the church, because we're in the middle of nowhere, Texas. And, well, the church is over for all practical purposes, and we've been trying to sell the building. Things have fallen through. We currently have someone who is trying to buy the building. We have a close date in December. I don't know if it's going to go through. I still think it's going to fall through. I want to be optimistic, but at this point, I'm so just like it's never going to happen. And that we're hoping that happens. Once that happens, if it occurs, and if the church continues to agree what they had agreed upon, well, that's going to be very beneficial for me, right? Because they're going to pay off the rest of my mortgage, and then I'm going to be in a pretty good place financially, at least from that perspective. If it doesn't go through, oh man, things are going to be difficult for me, because now my house payment I'm going to have to come up with, and I've been, the church has made my house payment for years. So yeah, that's going to be a big impact. So there's a lot of uncertainty there. There's just a lot of, I don't know. But for the podcast's sake, here's the thing. No more money's coming from the church. It's over. So how do I then support this podcast? Well, I got two options. Listeners, or I got to pay for it. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay. And especially, look, if the church can't make my house payment, I clearly cannot be paying for the podcast. I at that point, there's just no way. The podcast will just be gone. I'll just delete it and it'll be over and I'll move on. So then it's going to be up to the listeners. And I hate that reality. So here's what is happening. The end of December or January, then this podcast will come over to my bank account, meaning the $60 a month will come from my bank account. The $20 a month, our podcast hosting site will come from my bank account. The pod page will come from my bank account. The cost for the domain, the yearly cost for the domains, that will come from my bank account. If I need a new microphone, that will come from my bank account. If I need a new cord, if I need a new iPad, if I need a new computer, it's all coming from my bank account. No more money coming from the church. It's all going to come from my bank account. So then I will have to decide, one, how much can I afford? And two, how much is coming in? So here's what is, so that's just reality. Now I will let you know the second the account has been switched over to mine. If you are giving to this podcast, you need to know where your money is going. So right now it goes to Victory Baptist Church, and then that money is immediately taken out to pay for the podcast. But in end of December or January, it will be coming to me directly. So you need to know that. Some people may not want to give, and I will completely understand that. So that's going to be a big change. Be prepared for that within the next 30 to 60 days that's going to occur. And I will let you know the minute I'm doing that. I will tell you to stop giving until the transition has taken place. Then I will tell you if you want to give, and then we'll see if the money does come in, and then we'll just see where we are. All right. So that's going to be a big change. So if you want to give and your money goes directly to Victory Baptist Church and then immediately will be used for this podcast, you can go to theologycentral.net, hit the donate tab, or right there on Sermon Audio or the Church One app, hit the give tab. You can give it. That money will go directly to Victory Baptist Church, and I'm going to immediately take that and try to start paying anything I can for the podcast. Now, yesterday was a very encouraging day. I think yesterday or it's the last 2 days. It's been very encouraging because of listeners. In fact, maybe the last week, our listener from Ohio sent 2 checks. Very grateful. That's going to be very helpful. They say I can use those checks for anything. Well, if the church cannot make the house payment here in the next 8 days, well, then that listener is going to help me making my house payment for the month of November, and I'm going to be eternally grateful for that, all right? That's going to give me a little bit of time to figure everything out. So we will see. I don't know what the church is going to be able to do in 8 days. So there's a lot of uncertainty there. Other listeners gave money that goes directly to the podcast. That goes directly to the podcast because their notes say where they want it to go, and we follow that. I follow that to the letter, to the absolute letter. So we have a listener or a couple of listeners who gave over the last 24 to 48 hours. So what I am doing, I've already emailed Sermon Audio, and I'm asked them, hey, how can I make a payment that will cover the next 12 months? Because one of the listeners has given us enough to do that. That will be $720 that will be immediately pulled out of the account. Just like that. It's going to be gone. If Sermon Audio says that there's a way, I will be making the payment today for $720 plus, whatever it is, to cover the next 12 months of broadcasting for Sermon Audio. I am then going to go immediately to Spreaker. I already tried to, I got to figure out how to do that, see if I can make a payment for the next 12 months. That will be $240, right? So that will pretty much wipe out the money that's come in or come pretty close. But that will cover, hopefully, broadcasting for the next 12 months. That's what I'm going to try to do. All right. Now that's going to leave zero. That's going to pretty much put us at zero at that point in time. That won't cover the pod page. The pod page will still, that won't cover domain names, and it won't cover anything else coming up. But I am very grateful to that listener who sent there's been, I think, 3 or 4 listeners in the last 72 hours. I think it's been 3 or 4 listeners. I think it's 4 listeners in about the last 72 hours has stepped up and have made this now possible that we can possibly cover the next 12 months of at least Sermon Audio and of possibly the podcast hosting site. And if that occurs, that's amazing. It's going to leave me with zero, but that's going to put us in a at least you know that from now till November 2026, the podcast is going to be, I'm going to be broadcasting. I don't know what happens in November 2026, but can't worry about that, right? You got to only worry about today. So I am waiting for that email. In fact, I'm going to look right now. I'm going to look right now. Hang on. Let me look here. I'm looking at right now for Sermon Audio. Okay, no email response yet. I sent them an email yesterday. I asked someone else today. I'm waiting for an answer because I would love to just go ahead and pull the money out right now and just make the payment is what I would like to do. So that's what we're going to try to do. I will let you know the minute that happens. I would like to get to a place. I'm hoping within the next, if we have some other people who decide to give, I would love in the next week or two be able to turn on the microphone and tell everyone, hey guys, we're covered. Everything is covered for the next 12 months. Do not give another dime for 12 months. I want to get there. I think we're getting close. So if we can, I'm really going to do that. The minute I am there, I'm gonna say no more giving. I'm gonna turn off any giving. I'll remove the option, and do that. We're getting really, really close to being able to pull that off. So if you would like to give anything today, that would be great. theologycentral.net or the Give tab. Now, I understand we have a government shutdown. People have lost SNAP benefits. Some federal workers are not being paid. Look, if you're experiencing financial difficulty, do not give a dime. I don't want anyone to give a dime that's struggling in any way, shape, or form. Absolutely not. Use the money for your situation. Do not use the money for some stupid podcast, okay? Don't do that, all right? I do not want that. And for those who already give, I don't want you to give a dime extra. I don't want, no. Either we can come up with enough support from all the people who listen or we don't. But I don't want anyone giving to give an extra dollar at all. No, just you keep giving what you have been giving for this month. And like I said, I'm very hopeful that within about a week, I'm hoping maybe within 72 hours, maybe by the end of today, I can turn on the microphone and I can say, all right, everything's paid off. I don't need any more money for broadcasting. The end. And then if someone wants to give something, they're clearly just giving me a gift. Okay. That's on, then they will have to understand that And I will make it very clear. If you give now, well, at this point, it will still go to the podcast. But I'm saying if everything gets paid for and then you give, you would have to understand you're just offering me a gift at that point. But I'm hoping that we're so close that maybe by the end of today, I can say everything's paid for. We've paid for everything for the year. That would be awesome. And then I don't even have to worry about it. And then you have a year. Now, at the end of that year, I may have to go, okay, guys, I know you haven't given for a year, but we're bankrupt. Okay. But hey, that's okay. That's okay. That's the way it should be, right? You wait until you need something. You don't, and then you go from there. So that's kind of what's happening. So to kind of summarize, Victory Baptist Church is over, right, as far as supporting this podcast. It's done. We're hoping that the building goes through and it's sold, and then that takes care of some my financial situation dramatically here. That does put the podcast in it's the listeners will support it, and if the listeners don't support it, then it just goes. I'm not going to sit there and beg and beg and beg. I'll just delete the podcast and it'll be over. You'll wake up one day, it's all gone. Everything's gone. I'm going to delete everything. And some people say, well, why are you going to delete everything? Well, you do realize I can't keep, the sermon audio is not going to keep my archive of messages unless I'm paying $60 a month. Okay. Once I stop paying $60 a month, all of my content from sermon audio disappears. Okay. Spreaker is not going to allow my content to remain unless I'm paying $20 a month. Podpage is not going to let my content remain unless I'm paying $20 a month. A lot of people are like, why are you going to delete everything? I have no choice. Okay. Unless you're making the monthly payment, people don't allow you to just have all of your content there for free. Nobody's offering out of the goodness of their heart. Here, come put all of your content here. No, they're going to be like, you cost money. So yeah, that's kind of where we are. That the church, it's basically over. For now, any money you give will go to the church account, but it's going to be taken out immediately and go directly to the podcast. As fast as I can get it out and get it to whichever podcast site that I need to, and I'm going to try to pay for 1 year in advance. So if sermon audio gets back to me and they allow it, $720 is going to them just like that. And if I can get to Spreaker, $240 is going to them. And then if I can get to Podpage, it'll be about $240, between $240 and $260, I think we'll cover that. Everything else, then I'll just have to, any other expenses that come up, I'll have to cover. But, so if you'd like to give, great. And what I'm hoping for is in about 24 hours to 48 hours, I can turn on this microphone and tell people, don't give another dime for a year. That's what I want to be able to do today, is tell people not to give another dime. I am not trying to bring in money so that I get something. I'm not trying to bring in money so that you are covering anything for me. This is just to pay for the podcast. And then that's it. Once the podcast is paid for, then at that point, though, I will be letting anyone know, if you give now, you are literally just giving me a gift, okay? You'll be paying for, I don't know, my music subscription services, my television. At that point, it'll be above and beyond, but I will let you know when we get to the above and beyond. We're very, very, very close, very close. In fact, like I said, the one listener in the last, 24 hours gave enough to cover, pretty close to covering, I think depending on how much the total amount is for sermon audio, I think it should be $720. He's getting really close. So we're right there on the edge, right? We're right there. So I'm still waiting for sermon audio to get back to me. Hang on, I'm going to look one more time. It's funny. It's like I'm emailing sermon audio. Please take $720 today. Please take my money. And nobody will respond. Take my money now, please. Okay. Just make sure that I'm covered for the next 12 months. That's what's going on. And I'm very grateful. The last 24 hours has been very encouraging for those who have stepped up. So encouraging. I feel like I owe you guys like 1,000 episodes. I feel like I should be broadcasting around the clock. Maybe if maybe if we get right here, if we get close and we can make this work and we can pay everything off for the next 12 months, maybe I'll have to do like a marathon, to celebrate a celebration marathon of just me broadcasting about anything and everything, just taking listeners' requests. Oh, you want me to talk about this? Okay, give me 5 minutes. Let's go. Maybe we will do a celebration marathon if we can, not a marathon in order to earn money, but a marathon that we don't need to ask. Nobody has to give another dime. We're close. We're very, very, very close. So that's going to be awesome to be able to turn on the microphone and tell everyone, hey, all of you who support monthly, no more. Don't give another dime until the end of 2026. We're right there. And it's because of just basically 3 listeners has gotten us there. 3 listeners has basically stepped up and said, hey, we're going to cover you for a year. That's amazing, considering how many people listen that you never hear from, and 3 people are basically saying, hey, I'm going to support this for everyone else. So we are so close. So I will let you know. I'm still waiting for sermon audio. I may have to call them and say, hey, I got $720 here. Can you take it, please, now? And if you do, then make sure you credit my account for 12 months. So that's what we're going to try to do. And that's what's happening. It's kind of I don't like to be in this position, but it's in some ways it's encouraging. It's encouraging that at least, look, a podcast can survive if you just have 3 or 4 listeners who will support you. You don't really need that many to cover the cost of broadcasting. Now, if you're trying to make a living off of it, well, then that's a whole different ball game, all right? Yeah. And it's crazy how many podcasters get these like $10 million a year deals. Some podcasters make some serious money. And some ministries bring in serious money. Some ministries bring in over $1 million a year to simply play edited sermons. They just do the intro at the beginning and the outro, and it's just the edited sermons, and then they make $1 million a year. And then you have others you have to say, we're trying to pay the bills. So it's really interesting the way it works. But that's what's happening, and I'll keep you updated. So I'll just summarize one more time. This podcast was supported by Victory Baptist Church. For all practical purposes, Victory Baptist Church is done. They're no longer supporting this podcast. So this podcast now is supported by you, the listener. We are in a very good position that hopefully within the next 24 to 48 hours, we will be able to pay off everything we need to be able to broadcast for the next year. And I can come on and turn on the microphone and tell everyone not to give any more money for 12 months. We are very close. We're very close. If you would like to give today, your money will go to Victory Baptist Church and immediately be pulled out to go to these podcasting sites to cover the expense. You can do that by going to theologycentral.net, or on the Sermon Audio app, look up Theology Central, hit the Give tab, and that will be taken and immediately used. Once we've reached a certain level, which we're very close, I will turn on the microphone and tell everyone, stop all monthly contributions. That will be for everyone. I don't want any more money. Once we can pay off all the broadcasting, I will be telling you not to give any more money. And if you do, you'll need to understand you're just giving me a gift, all right? You're just buying me books. You're buying me food. You're putting gas in my car. You're just doing that kind of thing. But I will let you know when it flips to that, because it would be wrong for you sending me monthly money thinking you're paying for the podcast and it's already been paid for. That would be wrong. That would be not ethical. So we're close. Let's hope. And I just hey, if anybody from Sermon Audio is listening, tell me where to send the $720. I want to get this over with now. Okay. All right. I will keep you updated. That's what's happening behind the scenes. Hopefully the next time I turn on the microphone, either will just be to tell you no longer to give any more money, or, well, we can do like some different stuff with podcasting. And yeah, I would like to get some episodes done today. I really need to. And I've got a million other things I need to do, but I would really like to get some episodes in today. So that's what's happening. Thanks for listening. And to those who gave over the last 72 hours, thank you so very, 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 very much. You've almost got us to the point where we will not need any more money for 12 months. And that's a few listeners taking care of all of the expenses for everyone else. And I appreciate that. And hopefully those other listeners appreciate that as well. Thank you. And I'll update you shortly. God bless.